For many of us, discussing long-term care is something we might tend to postpone. It could feel distant or overwhelming, but the reality is that the need for care is more common than you might think. Today we'll discuss why the long-term care conversation is so important and what you can do now to give yourself peace of mind. We'll talk about long-term care options and costs and financial planning strategies that can help you live the lifestyle you want in retirement. Hi, I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren Merkle and AnnaMarie Morrow. Loren is a certified financial planner and a certified financial fiduciary. AnnaMarie Morrow is the director of Medicare and long-term care at Merkle Retirement Planning. And let's take a minute with that title, Loren, because for a lot of people, maybe if they're working with a financial advisor now, I'm guessing they probably maybe don't have anybody on staff with that title.
Well, in fact, that's what we hear oftentimes when people come in to talk to us and we talk about AnnaMarie, our director of Medicare and long-term care. They say, wow, you have somebody on your team that we can talk to, we can come visit with. You're not sending us away. That is really powerful. And one of the things that they really appreciate about that is they get to see AnnaMarie working directly with our retirement planners to make sure that their whole plan is working together. Because the decisions that people make with your Medicare, the decisions that you make with your long-term care could impact and oftentimes will impact decisions that are made with your investment plan, your legacy plan, and the other elements of your plan, all that work together to make sure that they have the lifestyle plan that is fulfilled. So having somebody like AnnaMarie on our team, not only is she a lot of fun to meet with, but she's really powerful to bring these strategies together to make sure that the plan is fulfilled.
He said fun, and you help people elect Medicare and talk about long-term care. But it's fun because you help them come up with solutions. So a lot of times it's Medicare. Today we're going to focus on long-term care. And what isn't fun, though, and you can empathize with this, AnnaMarie, is thinking about long-term care. And it feels so distant for a lot of people.
And the approach people can take with Medicare and long-term care is they view it as a single transaction, right? A siloed decision. But when you approach it within the context of your overall retirement plan, it takes that pressure of, oh, am I going to make the right decision or the wrong decision when that time comes? And it puts a lot of power and ease in your back pocket.
And I like that you said power, because power is what we want to help people feel today. We don't want to scare people, but we definitely want them to empower them. And we also know that there's some power with knowledge. So let's just get to some of the facts, because they are the reason that maybe people should care about long-term care. So today we're having this conversation, and here's why. Someone turning 65 today has about a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care during their lifetime. Now, we do know that a third of people may never need it, but 1 in 5 will need it for more than 5 years. So it's crucial to have a plan not only to give yourself peace of mind. You also have to have your spouse in mind as well, and your loved ones, if you're not married, who will be making this decision. So also another piece of helping people make the decision is more knowledge. So let's define long-term care. We talk about it a lot, but here's what the National Institute on Aging says long-term care is. Long-term care involves a variety of services designed to meet a person's health or personal needs when they can no longer perform activities on their own. The different types of long-term care services. There's home-based, so that's homemaker services, maybe nurses, home health aides, and therapists. There's also community and residential, adult daycare, that can be senior centers, residential facilities, assisted living or nursing home care, and then there's assisting with daily living, that can be bathing, dressing, eating, and mobility. Most people start with help at home. 65% of people use care at home. Only 35% ever enter a nursing facility. And this is really surprising, because I think when people think long-term care, they think of something they won't have to worry about till they're in their 80s.
Yeah, and we like to take the approach, there's the saying around the office, the best time to think about long-term care is before you need it. And it can, people often do think you're aging into needing long-term care, whether there's a family history of dementia, memory loss, they need a memory care center, which is specialized indeed. But also we see it, stroke, heart attack. We met with someone recently who is healthy in their late 50s, and they didn't think they needed to worry about long-term care. Well, sure enough, during Christmas, he's hanging Christmas lights, falls off a ladder, has a head injury, and after he was discharged from the hospital, he needed home health care. And it's one of those comments we always hear, I didn't know that, or I didn't think I would need that. We don't think it would ever happen to us. And a lot of times we see that progression that you just mentioned, it starts off with home health care, but then at what point do you need to recognize that it might not be a safe environment anymore? and more care is required within a facility.
And it's for all those reasons that now is the best time to plan for long-term care, because you just never know whether it's an accident that takes place or your health steadily declines or slowly declines. Having this taken care of sooner than later is better. A lot of people worry about long-term care. Molly, I think you did a marvelous job of really explaining the importance of long-term care for really two primary reasons. One is a lot of people are going to need it. 70% of those age 65 or older are going to need some sort of long-term care. And two, because so many people are going to need it, so many people worry about how they're going to pay for it. And if you can take care of your long-term care risk now or sooner than later, then that's one thing that you can check off the list that you don't have to worry about anymore. And you can focus on the important things of your retirement plan that you want to focus on, which is the European vacations, it's the fun with the grandkids, and all the other things that you're thinking about you want your retirement to look like, instead of worrying about some of these things that you can control the risk to some degree.
And some more stats that underscore the need to have this conversation as how long people will need care. Women will need care about 3.7 years on average, and men 2.2 years.
And that's a very powerful statistic to discuss, because women, we lean into that being a natural care provider. So if something happens to our significant other, we're more than happy to take care, lean ourselves into that, because that's just the way women are. But then something to think about is, once the husband passes away, who is left to take care of the wife should she need care throughout the duration of their lifetime? So that is really where some power comes into that planning, to give that peace of mind that they'll have the care they need.
Yeah. Go ahead.
With most of the couples we work with, that's the conversation that's had. The man rarely says, I'm going to live longer than my wife. He's always saying, I want to make sure that she's okay in the event that something happens to me. So that is problematic from a planning standpoint, because you have to plan for when they're both alive, but then when one of them's gone. But also those averages, those are averages. And this is hard to plan for, because maybe planning for 2.2 years or 3.7 years, that's doable for many people. But you already mentioned 20% of people are going to need long-term care for a duration of greater than 5 years. And that's a whole different animal to plan for. And so you're sitting there thinking, how do I plan for all of this? 2.2, 3.7, more than 5 years. What's it going to be for you? And that's where that planning really needs to be comprehensive, to make sure in the shorter term event, an event for one of you, both of you, or a longer term event, it's all taken care of.
And we've only talked about duration. We're going to talk about the cost of care next, and that's where it really gets eye-opening. But don't worry, we'll also talk about planning for that cost of care. Today, we're having the long-term care conversation. I'm Molly Nelson, here with AnnaMarie Morrow and Loren Merkle. And we're having this conversation because it's important. People shouldn't avoid it. Though it can feel overwhelming and distant, it's an important conversation to have, not only because we know that the need for care is common, the cost of care is outrageous as well. Here's the latest numbers from a 2024 Genworth survey. They found that a home health aide, so this is someone who helps with bathing, dressing, and eating, the annual median cost, $77,000. Assisted living, this cost went up 10% from the previous year that they did the study. Annual median cost, $70,000 a year. One reason that this cost keeps going up too is because occupancy rates have increased from 77% to 84%. So really pushing on that supply and increasing the prices. And one last stat for you. Private room nursing home, $127,000 a year.
And if that's not depressing enough, sometimes here in the Midwest, we think, well, because that's a national study, so we think, well, Midwest, the prices are a little bit lower. In fact, that is not the case. In fact, some of those are actually a little bit higher here in the Midwest than the national cost. So that's not great. But the good news is there are things that you can do to help offset those costs. You don't have to just rely upon out-of-pocket or self-insuring to come up with that money in the event that you need long-term care.
Yeah, and you guys both sit down with people every day. They understand that the costs of care are high, but you still help them work them into their plans. And I think one way to really illustrate this is to drill down with some numbers and a hypothetical couple, AnnaMarie.
And that's exactly why I think people want to put it at the back of their mind, because they hear these numbers and they're overwhelmed and they're intimidated, and it's like, I'm not going to think about this right now. But if we take that approach and maybe let's look at a hypothetical couple named Mark and Linda, and let's see what route they took to prepare for their long-term care costs. So Mark and Linda, they retired at age 68. with $1.2 million saved in their overall portfolio. And then at the age of 74, let's say Mark had a stroke, right? And then he needed long-term care for the next 2 years, which required Linda to take out an additional $10,000 a month for those 2 years to pay for Mark's long-term care costs. So that's $10,000 a month for 2 years.
$240,000.
$240,000. And that's on top of what she needed to already take out of what her income plan was to pay for a mortgage, car insurance, all the necessities you still have to pay for. So during Mark's stay, during this long-term care, this 2 years, Linda comes in and she sees, to meet with us, and she sees what's happened to their retirement portfolio, and she's wondering what can be done. She has seen what's happened to Mark, long-term care costs, and she's wondering, how does she set herself up should she need long-term care? So we go over what Linda's options are. And the first, traditional long-term care insurance, right? Initially, we know years and years ago, this was an option. There were multiple carriers offering multiple options at a fairly low cost. But what we found is those premiums initially were priced incorrectly to where we know what those premiums have reached, right? They're about what people can pay for a mortgage. So where people would let them lapse. And then all those years spent paying into this traditional long-term care insurance, if you don't use it or let it lapse, there's nothing left as part of a legacy. So then we talk about, so she decided that wasn't a good fit for her. So then what are her other options? We talked to her about a life insurance hybrid, which is just that. It's a life insurance policy where if she at some point needs long-term care, she can advance that death benefit to help offset those costs. And then another option she has is an investment hybrid where it's just that. It's an investment. She can receive growth off of that. And then if she were to lose 2 of the 6 daily living activities requiring long-term care, there's a long-term care component, a part of that investment. And then if she doesn't need long-term care, then she has that built into her legacy plan where that money would flow through to beneficiaries. So regardless of which option she chose, whether it was the insurance, the life insurance hybrid, or the investment hybrid, she knew she had these options and she had that confidence moving forward that she would be taken care of and have that offset of risk.
I think one of the key takeaways of that is a lot of times when people start thinking about the high cost of long-term care and how are they going to plan for that, immediately their minds go to this expensive long-term care insurance because that's what they're familiar with. Maybe they've talked to an agent about long-term care insurance and you've seen what the cost of that insurance is. Maybe your parents used to have it. Maybe, in fact, you have long-term care insurance and you're like most other people who are today getting notices that your premiums are increasing by over 20%, not only this year, but you're also receiving notification that you know it's going to increase by an additional 20% the following year as well. And you're saying, that's not for me. That's not for me. I can't afford those long-term care insurance premiums. I don't want to afford those long-term care insurance premiums. What else is there out there that can help offset those expenses? And that's where some of these other new products really come into play, these new solutions to help provide the long-term care coverage that you need, but without the disadvantages of traditional long-term care insurance.
And sorry, one of those disadvantages that I don't think we've even brought up with is health underwriting. Like that's a big concern, but what's happening with these new products, they're recognizing that, right? This is a demographic of people who really never thought about long-term care, but they're getting to an age where health underwriting is an option. And so we've seen some major advances where there's different options out there when it comes to health underwriting.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going as well, is because if you're thinking about long-term care, there's a whole segment of population out there that's saying, I can't get long-term care because of whatever illness they've had or disease they've had in the past. Now there's a lot of products out there, a lot of solutions out there where it's guaranteed issue, which means no matter what your health condition, you can receive some sort of long-term care. Or it's simplified issue, which means as long as really bad things haven't happened to you, you can receive some long-term care to offset some of that risk.
Yeah, recently we've been in a lot of emotional visits where people didn't know this was a thing.
Most people don't.
And they don't. And just again, seeing that anxiety and relief wash over, knowing I didn't think I had this option. They had been living in this quiet fear. They're living alone. They don't want to put that burden on their children or their grandchildren. And now they have this option. Those are some of the most rewarding visits visits we were a part
And
of.
it's another benefit of having somebody like you who specializes. This is what you do, Medicare long-term care. This is all you do for the families and individuals that we serve. So many people tell us when you talk to them about those options, they've never heard of that before. They've had these conversations before with their agent, with their advisor. They've never heard of solutions like this. Just another powerful aspect of having you, and that's all you do. You specialize in long-term care and Medicare.
Your ears might have perked up when you heard solution, peace of mind, taking the emotions and turning them into happy emotions because you have a plan, but you may have more questions. You heard the investment option and the life insurance option for planning for long-term care. You can talk directly with a retirement planner about these options by scheduling a Retire Ready call. It's pretty easy. Just go to retirereadycall.com. There is a calendar there. You can choose a time and a date that works for you, and then have a complimentary, low-key, no-pressure conversation about whatever's on your mind when it comes to your retirement. We'll continue talking about long-term care next. Welcome back. We're talking about long-term care. Now we want to answer some of your most frequently asked long-term care questions. I'm Molly Nelson here with AnnaMarie Morrow and Loren Merkle. Question number one, Loren, what happens if I don't use the insurance?
Yeah, this really goes to the heart of the advantages and disadvantages of the solutions that AnnaMarie was talking about, where true long-term care, if you don't ever need long-term care, you're just paying those insurance premiums, and then you don't, on most of those products, you don't get those premiums back. And if you pass away, there's not a death benefit to your survivors. Whereas the life insurance long-term care hybrid option, part of the benefit of that option is that if you never need long-term care, you pass away, there is a tax-free death benefit that goes to your beneficiaries. And then the asset-based long-term care, the asset-based long-term care hybrid option is if you never need long-term care, then you just use it as an investment because there's an investment component to it. You take it out as income if you never need it throughout the course of your retirement. It also goes on to your beneficiaries. So what happens if you never need long-term care is an important aspect of your evaluation as you're trying to determine which of these solutions is going to be the best for you.
Okay, Director of Medicare, I know you get this one a lot. Does Medicare cover any of this?
Oh, great question. As I'm reviewing summary of benefits when people are either aging into Medicare or electing beyond the age of 65, we talk about should they be admitted into a hospital, transferred to skilled nursing, and then coverage stops at around day 100. There's some nuances, as typical with Medicare. But then what happens? 100 days, that's when you think about it, that is not a long time. That's just over 3 months of consecutive care. And at that point, that is when long-term care would need to come into play.
Let's go back to kind of the tax planning piece of this. Are there any tax advantages to any of these options?
There certainly can be with some of them. Certainly with the life insurance long-term care hybrid option, I did highlight one. You never need it. It goes to your beneficiaries and it goes tax-free. That's a really powerful tax benefit of that strategy. Also, if it is classified, if your solution is classified as true long-term care and you're using that benefit for a long-term care need, most of those policies that income is going to come to you tax-free. So you use that tax-free income to help pay for those long-term care expenses. That is a really important component as well, because not all of those solutions that you referenced, AnnaMarie, or other ones that are available have that tax-free option. So we need to evaluate that as well.
And I love this example here that we're talking about taxes, because this really has illustrated when you look at long-term care solutions within the aspect of your overall plan, and you see there's an advantage within the tax pillar, within that tax component, to allow you to make a great tax efficient play with also having to cover long-term care. I mean, that is just a beautiful thing to see when you see all the pillars guiding you to the decision, so it's not a single transaction.
Yeah, I think at the top we talked about helping people take control, feel better, be able to enjoy their lifestyle. That's a great example of that.
Yeah, there's particular cases. One of my favorite cases when this happens is people have, we call it a legacy asset. So you have, and most commonly, let's call it a non-IRA, variable annuity and you have not paid money or not paid taxes on most of that money that's underneath that variable annuity, meaning let's say as an example, you invested $50,000 and then 10 years later that $50,000 is now grown to $150,000. That's $100,000 you haven't paid taxes on. With one of these strategies, you can do a tax-free exchange from that non-qualified variable annuity into one of these solutions, not pay taxes on it, and then if you need that down the road, even that gain, that $100,000 gain, can come to you tax-free to help pay for that long-term care. That's a really powerful tax strategy that most people don't think of. Most people are not aware of it, just the power of combining all of those into a comprehensive plan.
When you guys sit down with people, they want to know, should we plan for care for both spouses at the same time?
I love that, yes. And I just recently met with a couple, and that was her question. Her husband has a current health condition, but because of the new underwriting opportunities, he was able to get a certain type of coverage. And her question to me was, well, should I plan for this as well? Should I do this as well? And we talked about it, and it's the great unknown. You know, I shared with her that story of the head injury falling just from putting up Christmas lights, and she's like, yeah, I feel like this is a great secure way to go. And so showing that option, even with our hypothetical couple, Mark and Linda, you know, what can happen with both? Because we want both partners, both spouses to have that peace of mind so they can both enjoy their lifestyle throughout retirement.
And most of the time, they both want to plan. Where we really see couples getting stuck in this planning area is one that doesn't qualify, or one, they both tried in the past, one has qualified, one hasn't qualified, and you just kind of given up on the one who hasn't been able to qualify before. So forget about all of that now. This is a new planning era where there's new solutions available. Then you can bypass that underwriting issue that took place before, and then now you can both plan and be qualified for certain protection.
There's one more aspect of caregiving that I want to talk about, and it's the caregiver. We talk about the cost and the duration. It's the unpaid caregiver, because I know a lot of people watching, they can feel that maybe you're taking care of a parent right now or a spouse, and you know that a lot lies on you to take care of other people. And I think that we recognize that here at Merkle Retirement Planning. We actually offer a group, a place for people to talk about caregiving, that the families and individuals that we work with.
We do. We have a caregiving circle, which has been such a blessing to those who are currently caregiving, have in the past, and still need to talk about it. You know, if you're watching this and you yourself are a caregiver, or you've seen a family member do that, you know that changes who you are. That changes your life. And Kathy Koenig leads this caregiving circle, and it is powerful, and we have more and more people coming to it to provide that support.
Yeah, it's a complimentary group that we offer on a monthly basis to the families and individuals we work with, and they sit down and they talk about solutions. They're a caregiver maybe for a spouse or parent, and they talk about, hey, how did you handle this? And Kathy is a certified grief coach and a caregiving instructor, so caregiving counselor rather, so she helps them come up with solutions as well. So that we're really proud of that group that we have at Merkle Retirement Planning. And we're also really proud about not only fitting in opportunities for people like that, but we're proud of building out plans for people. You've been helping people do it for 25 years, Loren, and you've seen how it all comes together when they put all the plan in place, especially the long-term care piece.
Yeah, unfortunately, only 30% of those going into retirement have a written comprehensive plan. And for something so important as the rest of your life, think about what it's taken you to get to this point in time right now. All the sacrifice, the discipline it took for you to save the money that you've saved, that took a lifetime. And now we're talking about turning that lifetime of savings into the rest of your life of joy and fulfillment in a new phase of your life where you have the most time that you've ever had. You've probably have more savings than what you've ever had. Now you need to have a comprehensive plan that's customized to you, your wishes, what you're trying to accomplish in retirement, to make sure that you have the highest probability of having the most joy and fun in this next phase of your life. And that's what the Retire Secure Roadmap that we put together does for the families and individuals that we serve. It gives them answers. It gives them solutions. It decreases the emotion that is involved in a lot of these uncertainties that inevitably come into life. And it just provides a roadmap for them to live the best retirement that they can.
This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
If you've enjoyed this video, click here for more content. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can be connected with others just like you who are looking for entertaining retirement strategies.